Russia's leaders seem to enjoy showing off their weapons that could wipe out much of the life on the planet. The world has become accustomed to the idea that no country would ever use such weapons of mass destruction because the consequences would be too unthinkable. But the war in Ukraine has changed that calculation.
Штатов Америки не только ядерная. И только понимая о том, что по ним вдарят моментально, по Майами, Техасу, там, по любому штату.
The threats from Russian commentators now come almost daily, warning what could happen if Western countries keep helping Ukraine.
Или закончится совсем плохо для всего человечества, или мы победим. Третьего здесь не дано.
Russia's closest neighbors are taking the threat seriously. Invaded 70 years ago, Finland lost 10% of its territory to Russia. So, as Russia intensified its nuclear bluster, the Finns sought to join NATO for the protection of the alliance's nuclear umbrella. Protecting against a nuclear attack by Russia has been in the minds of Finns for decades. Looking around here in Helsinki at street level, you might not think so. But underground, it's a totally different world. If that unthinkable day ever comes, Finns say they'll be ready.
Okay, this way, please.
We're 20 meters deep under the city's central market in one of many purpose-built nuclear bunkers.
It is rough if we need to shelter, but you stay alive.
There are beds, toilets, and an elaborate ventilation system. This bunker doubles as a recreational facility with a hockey rink, a parking lot, and a gymnasium.
This isn't a hotel. We don't have a breakfast buffet.
Since Putin's nuclear saber-rattling, civil defense instructor Tommy Rask has escorted dozens of foreign news crews through the city's underground labyrinth as nervous nations want to learn more about Finland's precautions.
The media coverage that I've been watching from Ukraine has taught to me that we are doing the right things.
In spite of the threats, Vladimir Putin's stated policy is to only use nuclear weapons such as these Yars thermonuclear ballistic missiles if attacked by them or if the existence of the Russian state is threatened. And NATO appears to explicitly acknowledge those red lines.
We will not send in NATO troops on the ground or NATO planes in the air.
To many in the West, Vladimir Putin's decision to invade Ukraine was unwise, extremely risky, and has turned out badly. But the Kremlin leadership appears to believe otherwise. And Finnish defense analyst Matti Passu says it's also fair to wonder if Putin would have a different calculation for using a nuclear weapon.
Our view of what rational behavior is may differ considerably from what the Russians think that is rational action. But so far they have used harsh nuclear rhetoric, but they haven't really done any serious nuclear signaling that would that could imply that they're ready to use nuclear weapons.
Nonetheless, there are troubling scenarios, notably in parts of Ukraine that Russia now claims as its own, especially Crimea, which it seized in 2014.
There are scenarios in which
Malcolm Chalmers is the Deputy Director of Britain's Royal United Services Institute, a defence and security think tank in London.
Where the risk rises is if there's some sort of catastrophic collapse of Russian conventional capability, which could happen, and they begin to lose quite a lot of the territory they've gained. And the question then is, what is Russia's own territory? Is it as Russia defines it, or is it as others define it?
Where Russia's nuclear threats may be having the greatest impact is in deterring Western nations from sending all of the weapons Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky has been pleading for.
There's a sense that Ukraine has got to fight with one hand tied behind its back in order to reduce the chances of escalation.
On Russian TV, nukes are being normalized. One Kremlin propagandist warned Russia could annihilate the United Kingdom by exploding a device and triggering a giant tsunami.
Это всего лишь один пуск, Борис, а Англии нет.
The belief that as a nuclear power, Russia cannot be defeated goes to the heart of Putin's calculations, says Chalmers.
Russia feels it's losing, it has to issue a threat to say, look guys, we are a nuclear weapon state. In today's world, you cannot fully defeat a nuclear weapon state.
Above their bunkers, stoic Finns share a 1,300-kilometer-long border with Russia. The Ukraine war and the risks of escalation it brings for Europe unsettle many. Could you ever foresee Mr. Putin firing a nuclear weapon that would make you run into those bunkers?
For sure, of course. That's why we have them.
I don't know if the Ukrainians, like 6 months ago, were worried that they would end up in a bunker, and now they are.
This way, please.
Russia's war in Ukraine has prompted a reassessment of the calculations involved in using nuclear weapons. But it has also affirmed that countries possessing such weapons don't actually need to use them to wield their power. Chris Brown, CBC News, Helsinki.